Indeed. We will not be recording everyone's faces, but the main screen will be recorded and will be shared afterwards, so you know. Hybrid learning. Before I give you our answer to this question, I want to welcome you to type your current definition and understanding of hybrid learning in the chat. Whatever you're sitting with, you can type it here in the chat that just came up. Just get a sense of what are we bringing to the table around hybrid learning in our virtual room in the group. 54 people with 54 views maybe on what hybrid learning is. Feel free to shoot them up in the chat. See who's going to be first. Life. If you haven't found the chat yet, it's in your little menu bar in the Zoom window. It might be hidden, so you might need to click the three buttons, and then it'll come up. So, okay, they're coming in online and offline, combination of in real life and digital, another buzzword with great potential to confuse the learning experience everywhere, no matter where you are, learning both in classroom and digital, learning that takes both places. Okay, you can scroll for yourself here too. I won't be able to read up everything. It's complicated, mix different methods to achieve best outcomes. Online and offline, learning everywhere, learning individual and in group, classroom environment, mix of self-paced online learning in presence and using various interactive tools. Great, okay. So a lot of good words on fluid. Great. Thank you for sharing that. Words are important. When we talk about hybrid learning, and this is the kind of the hybrid learning kind of definition and framing that we've been, and this is pre-pandemic, 2019, 18. Hybrid learning for us is around about learning. It can happen anywhere and anytime. And when designing hybrid learning experiences, it's really about connecting to the science around how we learn, really understanding the conditions and needs of our learners in order to support behavioral change. And based on that, then coming to what are the technologies, what are the methods, what are the pedagogies that we should be applying to achieve those goals. So really a holistic look at learning in a world that can be highly analog and highly digital, low tech, high tech. That's the framing for what we're going to be talking about today. So reading what you said, it encompasses our definition encompasses many of the different ones of the views that you have. But I also welcome you to, even if this definition is different from yours, to lean in to this this session with an openness and curiosity around what it could mean and how you can take what you hear and see and do today in your context, even if it is a slightly different framing. Great. So I already said, I got too eager, I said it already. We're going to be looking at Folke Bernadotte Academy, Handelsbanken, and Volvo Construction Equipment's journeys around building capacity for hybrid learning design in their organizations. And one of the things they have in common is that we've been working with them in different capacities over the last year and in some cases few years. And we will explore it through three kind of lenses. First, establishing who they are, why they're doing this work, and where they want to get to with it, and who their target group is. Then, how they've done it, and what they've seen in terms of changes along the way and impact. And then learnings from doing the work and the continuous work that it is. You've now flexed your chat muscle. Feel free to continue to use that. Bella will be, hi Bella, We'll be keeping an eye on the chat, bringing in questions when they're relevant in the moment, or maybe holding them off a little bit if she sees that be more relevant. But feel free to share your reflections and thoughts. It doesn't need to be formulated questions. It can be thoughts also to bring them in to build the conversation together here. Great. It's always fun to see what's on your next slide. This is what is on my next slide. And maybe I can ask you, Marta, to unmute. Because we would, in addition to this nicely designed slide, it would be good to hear a little bit about you, your team, where you are in the organization, and then a little bit of the thoughts and behind your why and where to and your target group.
Yes, thank you. And hello, everyone. Marta Asp, working at Volvo Construction Equipment as a learning method specialist. And I'm a part of a global organization, a center of competence organization, who share best practices when it comes to methods, solutions, and learning strategy, basically. And also part of Europe International region. So helping or assisting the other regions as well. And we are in a huge transformation journey, I would say, moving away from quite heavy on instructor-led trainings to a more digital delivery to reach as many learners as we can with what we produce, basically. And we have also gone through a quite big change in organization as well, with new roles and new ways of working and so on. So and that's why we signed up for this collaboration with Colearn to get faster on track on what we want to achieve, and they aligned quite good with our thinking, our way of thinking. And the target group primarily for us has been a new department of learning designers. So they have worked in a different role previously. So now we are upskilling them to be learning designers, and also our learning portfolio managers. So they are basically project managers for all the learning projects that we have.
So to both a change in what you then deliver in your role in the organization, but also a change in terms of the context in your team and the roles and the competence in that.
Yes.
Great. Thank you for that framing, Marta. If you guys have questions, if you need more information, please just put it in the chat, and we'll serve you up as best we can with what you need to get the grasp of that frame. Great, thank you. I think we should frame our next Handelsbanken too, and then what we'll do, we'll frame everything, and then we'll go into the individual journeys. So Numi, do you want to unmute and give us your little take on this?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Numi, and I am the Deputy Head of Learning and Development at the Handelsbanken Group. So I work on a kind of a group level. We have 5 home markets, so different countries where we operate. And each country also has their kind of local learning and development groups as well, but we have the group perspective. And we've gone from sort of quite focused on giving guidelines and directions, and learnings being produced very much locally, and also using quite a lot of external, quite heavily funded and time-consuming e-learnings, for example, and other things that's been produced externally, to needing to be much more fast-footed, being able to adapt and change much faster. Also wanting to be able to scale up and work closer together and use what's being produced in not different parts of the bank, across the bank in a different way. And this has kind of resulted in a lot of our function owners, we call them, but kind of area specialists. So within credit, for example, taking much more responsibility and working actively with competency development, which is a really fantastic progression, but it also changes the sort of the support and needs that and the role we take. So we now are much more active in providing support and pedagogy and methods used, and as well as educating in the type of tools that are available, and also shifting from a very focused on the 1 to 2 days training courses, and it's great to be sent off on training, to learning that is just in time, and it's adapted to your work, adapted to when you need it, and also a stronger focus on creating a learning that actually you have a result in a behavioral change and something that you then apply further on. So broadening or lengthening the learning journey. And so the target group and where we've also used your hybrid learning toolkit as well, is very much around both focusing and creating a framework for us as a team and our HR colleagues who work with this more locally, and working closely with the function owners and the kind of knowledge experts who are getting much more involved in learning these days. Great,
thank you, Numi, for that framing. Also, there an external or change journeys on different levels: societal, banking industry, organization, and team. Yeah. Great. Marta, there's a question for you around what your learning designers used to do before. You can jump in the chat if you want. Oh, there you are. Perfect. Spot on. Thank you, Numi. Should we do you, Teresa, to set the framing of FBA's journey? So who's Folke Bernadotte Academy, and give us a little insight into the world.
Well, thank you. Yes, Folke Bernadotte Academy is a governmental agency that works with peace, security, and development. And one of the tools that we have in this field is trainings. And at the point when we started this journey with hybrid learning development, I was the senior coordinator for pedagogy in the agency, and was working as a central function, you can say, together with our coordinator for digital learning as well. And at this point, I'm seconded by FBA, but we still have our coordinator for pedagogy and a digital learning coordinator as well. And our target group, since we work a lot with trainings, and we do trainings together with partners in international contexts, we still need our own capacity in the agency to run and to design trainings, and both digital and also in real life, you can say. Yeah, our target group is our colleagues that works with trainings, facilitates trainings, but also design trainings and deliver them. And yeah, that was our start. We were running a lot of internal training of trainers, but we also design and develop trainings in our thematic areas, where I would really say that the teams have been a driving motor and also inspiration for the agency, and how we share and learn from each other, and also developing our methods. But the coordinator role is mainly a function with coordinating pedagogy, our basic principles for pedagogy and learning, and yeah, how we apply methods to make learning efficient and result-based.
Great, thank you for sharing that, and also from your journey, also in terms of shift from simply focusing on the or initially focusing on the technology part of it. How can we use technology effectively, but also a shift to a more result-based, as you mentioned, need-based, holistic view of what learning is in your contexts.
That have been a really big part of the journey, starting from how can we use the digital tools more efficiently, and how can we implement that in our trainings. And from that question in the start of the journey, you can say it opened up to hybrid learning and looking at not only integrating digital tools and support each other and all colleagues with how we use our toolbox and the functions and how we integrate that in trainings, but more, like you said, Sveinung, how we can focus on the needs, the learning design, and make trainings more flexible, and also based on the needs and the actual change and results we want to achieve with the trainings.
Great. Perfect. Okay, so now we have a little bit of framing. I know there's some questions and things going on in the chat, so do continue to dig in that space. I think we should go into what you've done and how you've done it. So if I go to the next slide here, so you've been on different, if you heard from the framing, different but some yet similar journeys when it comes to driving changes in this area. And what we've done, we've kind of looked at your 3 journeys, and then we have pulled out all of the building blocks that you've been implementing and working with, and to categorize them a little bit, to give us a sense of what type of building blocks are possible here. And by the way, we will share these slides afterwards too, so you can print screen now if you want, but you can also get the PDF afterwards. So some areas that these building blocks are in, some building blocks, and when we say building blocks, they could be activities, activities, initiatives, pieces of the journey, the things that you've done and implemented as to along the way. So category around this is to analyze, where we have external and internal learning, auditing in current state, partnerships deeper in the organizations. The next one is organizing, and these it could be in different orders too, obviously. Organizing, so collaborating when it comes to development of IT and other things, to have the learning perspective in that space. And then a big one around organizational change, structure and process, and driving that activity along the way. Another category around training, for example, workshops, longer trainings in different forms that we deployed. We then have enablers. You've mentioned the hybrid learning guide, onboarding to the tools and the methodology, and then creating materials to support implementation, translating these things into actionable, usable things that the teams can pick up and run with the shared vocabulary and shared ways of working. Then we have another category, the fifth. There's no more room on this slide, so you'll see this is the fifth and final bulk, things to do to accelerate the change. So experimenting in your current solutions, running sessions and discussion groups, having feedback from external experts, and lessons learned, continuous knowledge sharing and lessons learned. So this is like the snapshot of all building blocks. And then what we'll do now, we'll go to your individual journeys to see how you kind of deploy them and what has been the keys in the work that you've done. I thought we mentioned the hybrid learning guide a couple of times now. So the hybrid learning guide is a hands-on design tool and a methodology that we've developed to support the implementation of hybrid learning principles, and backed by science, and where technology is the enabler to reach behavioral change. which is a tool that you've deployed in different ways for different private groups, and we can speak more to that. But then we mentioned this a couple of times now, so it's good to frame it. So Marta, if you want to unmute, so maybe what we can do is I can speak broadly about the building blocks, and maybe we can get you into to speak more about what have been the success factors and keys in this work. So the continuous context of this change in the organization, new roles and new ways of working, working with your team, but also the extended team in that. You've then had access to the hybrid learning guide and had onboarding to that, where you explored the methodology in order to create, what does this mean for us? What is the shared language that we want to get inspiration from? And this has been accessible to your learning team. Then along the way, you've had discussion groups, self-organized, to explore current challenges and needs relating to both new roles and new methods. And then for that to then go into continuous experimentation into the solutions, try and learn in the projects. Can I invite you in, Marta? What have been the keys to this work overall that you've seen? What have been important?
Yeah, first of all, I think the onboarding and having the guide as a foundation for us to have this common language when we talk about setting the foundation, for example, the building blocks and everything, that everyone has the same picture in the production teams. So that has been great having that. And also, I got a question previously in the chat with the new roles, and maybe elaborate a bit more on that.
Yeah, great.
We have had, when we talk about the ways of working, we have previously worked very content focused, I would say, building the trainings around the content instead of focusing on what is it that we really want to achieve with this training and building it from the activities instead and from the content. So it's been quite a huge mindset for many people in our organization. And we want our new learning designers that have previously worked as media producers, producing video, photos, more of like having this ready-made manuscript and just producing what that says, basically. But we want them to take more responsibility now for building good learning activities, and then with the help of SMEs filling it with content in the end, instead of doing it the other way around. So just to elaborate a bit more on that, I think it's I didn't explain it that good in the beginning. But these I think one of the most the best parts with this is that we have, as you said, have had these discussion groups with these new learning designer groups, and that has been really fruitful. Like we have taken parts of the guide and discussing it, and it's been highlighting other things as well, that the challenges they have in their new roles and so on. So I think that has really been a good thing that we have done after this onboarding.
Yeah, great. If you guys have questions, if you're sitting on them, don't sit on them. Put them in the chat, and because this is the opportunity to get your curiosities answered too. What is the biggest challenge you've had in this in this continuous journey? What has been the biggest challenge, or what is the biggest challenge?
I think the biggest challenge is what I was talking about before, this change of mindset on looking at how we actually produce learning or training, looking at it from another perspective than only focusing on the content. Because since we are delivering quite technical trainings with a lot of details and so on, it's so easy to just dive into the content and build a manuscript or produce a manuscript out from that, because our SMEs knows everything and they want everything in the training. But I think that the change in mindset, like, is this really what they need now? Or could we actually put that somewhere else, because we have crammed quite a lot of information into our trainings previously, and we want to move away from that and really see to that they get the information they need at the point of need, so to say. So that is the biggest change, and that we are driving right now, and the hardest thing for people to understand and to work with.
Two things. SME, can you explain what it is? And then the question from Anna, were the SMEs part of the onboarding?
No, not at this moment. SMEs was not part of the onboarding, and that is also a change that has come with this organizational change. Previously, we have had a lot of global trainers that have been responsibility of being both producing manuscript and delivering training and so on, and they will work more as a subject matter expert in that they are part of the productions, but more as a role of delivering the subject matter expert expertise or delivering that. But we will also utilize other SMEs around the organization as well that we haven't been doing a lot before, but maybe they will come eventually. But we were focusing on these major roles in the production teams now, or the people that will actually work a lot with these activities, and trying to get them to understand this and to work this way before.
Great. SME, subject matter experts. And then in terms of the changes you've seen, you've summarized a few here. Do you want to talk us through these quickly? We get a, Yeah,
I think we have reached a stage now when everyone in the organization is starting to think differently around this. They have grasped the idea of this with creating the activities in the beginning and then filling it with. And we have had a project where we have tried to, we have had, for technicians before, we have had this major long 2 weeks instruction-led courses, and we are now trying to create that in a more digital way. And so that is a project that's been ongoing now for 6 months or something. And there we have really focusing on this with the activities and building it from that. And this is something that we have as an example for the rest of the organization. Yeah. This is how you can do, and this is how we can work. And
great.
And also seeing this increased willingness to try new things. In the beginning, there were a lot of, we have always done it this way, it has worked, why should we do it differently? But now we are seeing a willingness to try new things and to try to work differently, so that's good. And also the learning designers, they have also understood about this with asking the right type of questions in the beginning of a production, so they can build these learning activities in a good way. And so I think that's the major changes and we have seen.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Marta. Perfect. Okay, we could stay the whole hour on this journey actually, but we have 2 more to do. So let's dig into them. Handelsbanken Numi. So as you unmute to give people an overview here, try to not repeat too much what is said here on the screen, but a mix of external networking research, partnerships in the organization, having a presence and holding the learning perspective high in continuous IT development as you change. You've had access to the guide. You've then had translating into what are the shared structures and ways of working, and then creating your own materials in order for them to really meet your recipients where they are in terms of making them accessible, getting the language right, and then experimenting, trying, and doing in projects. What have been the keys for you in the work?
Yeah, I think and I probably should have mentioned that before when we talked about the why and the who is also, we're in this big change in Handelsbanken in terms of doing a lot of IT development, moving into new IT environments, both where we meet our customer and also internally, which affects a lot of the work we do as well. And I think we've spent a lot of time being present in rooms, like asking questions, kind of bringing our point of view across, which sometimes feels a little bit like you're not delivering because you're not actually like giving someone an activity or something, but we see a really important shift in how people think about learning and how it becomes part of a much broader perspective, because it does impact on where should information be. And there's a lot of conversations around what's information and what's learning, for example. That line is often quite blurry and can be difficult to kind of to set, and people like very clear lines, and there's very rarely clear lines. And I think that, like Märta was talking about before, those being able to ask those questions at the start changes a lot of things. And because we've started having those dialogues a few years back, and through that we see a big change now. And now we have, so the SMEs are kind of more asking us for more input, and they want to know more, and they want us to be more critical when we give feedback, and they want us to kind of be, they want more information and are more ready then to get more in-depth materials. So when we've worked with the learning guide, for example, it's both helpful to create our own shared language like we talked about, but also then trying to think, well, we can't go quite as deep with when we talk to our credit department about these things, for example, but they still want the information. So you have to find the right level of where to start. What questions do you focus on first, and making clear why this is helpful for them. And it's been the same. We work with within our IT development in the Lean Agile train methods, and we've been quite active in there as well, having dialogues about how to think about this and how do we, who is the audience, what's their, what's new ways of working, for example, how prepared are they for what you're going to deliver, and what's the circumstance where they are when they're being given this. And it changes a lot. Just asking little simple questions changes a lot of the thinking and approach to things. And that's been a crucial thing for us in creating this, to look at how training can be shifted and changed. I feel like I could talk for a long time about this, but I want to give space for.
No, good. What would you say? What is a big challenge you've seen? I mean, you touched on some, but what stands out to you as like the hurdle or something you?
I think it's a big challenge is not wanting to do too much at once, and trying to set realistic goals, but at the same time keeping that end goal in sight. So you're not kind of giving up the vision that you have, but knowing that it's going to take smaller steps and being patient, and then that can be quite a big challenge, I think.
Yeah, great. So you touched on some of your learnings here. Do you want to add anything on these?
Well, I guess the people kind of trying new things.
Changes, I mean,
is something I maybe didn't mention so much, but that's a great thing we've seen, not only within our team, but it then extends to SMEs, where they themselves also start suggesting, trying new ways of rolling out learning and different ways of building awareness rather than just producing learning, like e-learnings and things like that. So, and you see then we try new things, but also willingness to let them try within our area kind of builds momentum to change at a faster pace, which has been a great change to see.
Great. Thank you for this. And as you said, we could talk forever, but we shouldn't, because then we won't get any work done. Great, thank you, Numi. Teresa, the FBA journey, and while you unmute, I can then do a little top level starting point of the current, auditing the current state, asking the questions and maybe tweaking the questions to ask around pedagogy, technology, and opportunities. Then going into continuous lessons learned sessions along the way as part of building the culture of knowledge sharing. Then doing development labs where both the solutions and the team's capacities are developed alongside having access to the guide. As part of that, also digging into particular projects and initiatives with expert feedback and coaching. Workshops around your own workshop internally delivered around hybrid learning, and then the peer support as coming out of that, where groups and teams support each other continuously, and onboarding of new employees to the guide and to the methodology. What have been the keys and challenges in your journey, Teresa?
Well, I would say that the first step here that you spoke about, Svein, in the audit, it was kind of a real breaking point for all of this, because in the beginning, well, I can say that FBA have had a strong focus on pedagogical development and execution of trainings and in our field for a long time. But at that point, we started to look at how can we use digital tools more effectively, and how can it be an enabler for relevant pedagogy and technology. How can we use that more effectively, and how can we integrate this information and communication technology into our training practice, and how we actually create more flexible trainings. So it was kind of a strong focus in the beginning of this technology as an enabler and flexibility. But that was the point when we also started looking into how do we design learning solutions that also really takes care of this flexibility and drives learning from motivation, making learning relevant, applicable, and useful as well. So we really had to go in straight on to the foundations of these trainings, and also you explained it, the hybrid learning was something that we explored in this first step. Actually, learning happens everywhere and anytime was your statement earlier, and here we started to look at, but how can we also make learning happen at the right time with technology as an enabler. And at this point, we already had this structure of lessons learned that was more of a support structure to build our own capacity in training practice and how we share experiences, reflections, lessons learned with each other within the organization. So that was, of course, a very good structure to continue building on, to make sure that our learning in the organization didn't stick to silos in the teams where they were explored and where they were conducted, but also that we were having a common lessons learned forum for every trainer and subject matter expert in the organization. So we like to in our development journey, we really use this lessons learned forum together with the development lab that was actually focusing on hybrid learning pedagogy and hybrid learning. How can we use our actual projects in this development journey and start to look into the design, the foundations, what are the results we want to achieve with these trainings. And then we were working with the actual trainings in the development lab. And here we had hybrid learning guide as our tool and support for the design process, and also the chances to have expert feedback, but I would say just as well, or even more important, maybe the peer support, that we actually started to use each other's developments and examples as inspiration for each other, and also feeding that up into the lessons learned forum. So it was from what we actually explored and experimented with, we also took the innovations with us and shared the lessons learned together, and documented that for further development. And during this journey,
I think just there you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, since it says workshop here as well, hybrid learning, I just wanted to say that this was also a product, you can say, during this journey, that we still saw that we needed a type of support and internal training where we can continuously work with development of hybrid learning. And in this workshop, I would say we took the opportunity to go from formal learning workshop to a more open format where we could have this informal learning as well. We took our real projects with us into the workshop and worked with this, for example, with the production and design during the workshop.
Yeah, great. I think you lift something interesting in terms of when we did the audit around understanding what did learning mean in your context, and that it was in many ways kind of synonymous with face-to-face, and then everything else was kind of additions to that. But finding those insights in the beginning kind of sets the journey up. So it's important to start with the beginning and the questions in that. So in terms of your learnings, you've mentioned, if you have anything you want to add, I think it's pretty well summarized actually in terms of what you said.
Yeah, I would say that that the start, like you said, I mean, finding a common language, and when we started to actually analyze this, like how do we perceive learning and what is our perspective, maybe we saw in our policies, documents, that somehow we still had a frame that was more describing learning as a formal process, and the hybrid learning was, and this audit was a step for us to actually unlock the ideas and the potential, what we could do with digital tools as enabler to also make learning happen anytime and anywhere, and most at the right time by integrating that. So yes, that is.
So a big complex journey summarized in a few minutes. But yeah, thank you, Teresa. Thank you for highlighting that. So any questions, Bella? Any questions or thoughts that we should be bringing in before we go into the learnings? We've talked about learnings already, but I think before we summarize the learnings, anything on the chat? No?
No, I don't think so. I think they've been having a few discussions here, but no direct questions. So I think we can continue.
Perfect. Great. So in the last 15 minutes, we want to focus on our learnings and wrapping up. And we're also going to give you an opportunity to reflect on what are you curious to explore after hearing all of these. But maybe we should do a little short round of learnings. I think I'm going to stop sharing screen, and then we can do. Should we start with you, Marta? What are your learnings from the process? What is your summary?
Yeah, a lot of learnings, I think. But is this with like, we all know that change takes time, but it's good to have these ambassadors for change, I would say, and our learning designers team that we have had these dialogues with now they have really been ambassadors for this change in the production teams, and also this production team that has been working a lot with this, what we call new technical learning path, but the new way of delivering training for technicians. The team there has been really promoting this new way of working. So I think to have ambassadors that can work with the rest of the organization has been really good for us. Yeah, I think I've said there that don't underestimate the power of dialogue and these discussions that we have been having, these reflections and sharing experience and so on has been really good, I think, and that is something that we have tried out with other topics now also in the organization, inviting to these open discussions, having discussions around different topics in the organization. I think that is really good and something that we will continue with in various forms, I think. And also maybe not so connected to the guide itself, but we have seen now in the project that I've been mentioning several times now that we worked a lot with building trust and so in that team in the beginning, and to be able to everyone to be able to be secure in their new roles and to try out these new things. And it's been taking some time, but now we actually see the fruit of that, or it was good to take that time in the beginning of the project, I would say, so now they are starting to think outside the box of what we have been doing before. So building trust in the productions team, I think is vital when you have this new way of working and new roles, I would say.
Right. We have a question now from Anna. She's curious to hear, besides the L&D working differently, what do the actual learning solution looks like from a learning perspective? Like, in what way has it been different? If either Teresa, Märta, or Nomi would like to share one example.
Yeah, maybe I can start now since I'm unmuted already.
Yeah, do please.
When it comes to, as I said, we have been delivering, I think, to get the technicians up to speed, we have had a lot of face-to-face trainings, and that is what we are reducing now, and we are focusing on sort of what they must know to be able to do a certain task, and that is delivered mostly digital. When it comes to e-learnings, it could be PDFs, videos, and those kind of solutions. We also have face-to-face training, but utilizing it in a different way, more practical than conveying knowledge, so to say. So it's been instead of a training or a trainer explaining everything or just conveying information, we're focusing more on the practical tasks and discussions and so on the trainings that we will deliver in the future. So more digital content and focusing on, and also adding on a lot of other courses that they can search for on their own at the point of need, instead of having everything crammed into the formal learning or what they will be tested on, basically.
Yeah, great question, and thank you, Märta, for sharing your answer to that, or how it's been looking. Great. What about you, Numi? Numi, what's the quick? Looking at time now, what is the quick version of your key learnings?
I think a lot of it's obviously shared with what Märta says as well, but I think and linked to the question actually is what we've learned is you can do a lot more than maybe you think with the tools you already have. I think there's a lot of discussion for us around, well, we don't have teams yet, we don't have, we want a different platform, we want different tools. but what we found is you can actually change how you deliver learning with what you have already. So for us, the big shift in how learning is delivered, it's a lot, what Mette mentioned, you know, it's kind of focused in how you can deliver it digitally, and it might be a video, it might be an e-learning, but also how you then use that, rather than you have the occasions where it's just the one little thing that you need to access, but also more learning journeys where you and focus really on the before, during, and after. And that during might be a very long time. You know, you might have preparation work you need to do before a training session, and then you meet. And the meeting can be digitally or physically, but where you focus around the material that you've already kind of looked at beforehand, and then again following that up and having tasks or different things in between sessions. So that's a big shift in how the learning has been delivered, I'd say, which has been helped by the pandemic and the remote working to push people into that sort of environment. But that's something we definitely see continuing, because as we get a lot of really positive feedback from learners around this as well, from the learning journey. But I'll like you say, I'll keep it short and pass over to Teresa.
Yeah, and we've already, behind the scenes, we already got the key learnings from the three of you, so we will share them in the PDF too. So even if they're cut short now, everyone will get access to them. Teresa, what's the 90-second version of your learnings? Shorter and shorter now.
90 seconds. That would be that. I think we expanded our square from the formal learning to actually including the informal learning, and how we could build structures and how we could build opportunities for us, everyone in the capacity of our own organization, to share inspiration, share reflections and the lessons learned with each other, and also build on this informal learning, and also in our trainings, like in the workshop that we created that was focused on hybrid learning, to bring the work to the workshop rather than learning for working in the other end. And that was really important perspective change, or if I would say expansion for us.
Yeah.
And also one more thing that I really need to mention is that an important change in this journey was that we also expanded our organization with the digital learning coordinator, and that was also a resource that we really needed to like share our digital toolbox and know-hows and support implementation on how to use the tools and the functions, just like Nomi and Marta was mentioning in their examples as well, to do it with micro knowledge sharing. So we're starting motivation with action, and don't wait for motivation to only lead to the action. Yeah.
Great, Teresa. Sorry to rush you. We will share the more detailed version with everyone too. So we've got 4 minutes left, and I think we would love to also pass it over to you in order to support you to get the most out of this session that you've sat through and lent into, to reflect quickly on what are you curious to explore? What are you curious to do, to dig into more now after this session? And please share it in the chat so that we can inspire each other and give each other input on our next steps. So take to the chat and share 1, 2, 3 things that you are curious about now after spending time together on this topic. No one is curious about anything. Here we are. Oh, okay. Takes time to type, of course. Sorry. Just in time learning versus engagement. Yeah, interesting. How do you go about making team members feel trust to this new learning and securing their new roles? Yeah, definitely an interesting area. Need to explore the implications for learners, how they need to change attitudes and behaviors in a hybrid learning world to make it work in reality. Yeah, and maybe how the designs can really understand their current behaviors and attitudes in order to meet them, right? How to shift mindset from face-to-face, the best option. Yeah, how to build a learning culture, efficient L&D team with roles and responsibilities to serve these new needs. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, please do share in the chat here, because what we'll do, we'll also share for you who were here, you will get a copy of the chat too, so you can go back to what was shared there. We won't share that beyond this group of the people here. But as a way of wrapping up, thank you for being part of this. Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Numi, for sharing your journeys, your continuous journeys. And for everyone else too, thank you for being here. If you're curious to know more about what we've done together with these 3 leaders and the organizations, we're happy to speak more and to explore how we might be able to support you with these curiosities or any other change that you're driving in this space in your organization. So thank you for today, and have a great rest of your Tuesday. Bye, everyone.